In the 1990s, I was a young new financial advisor, and I really enjoyed a lot of that job. I mean, I loved talking to people about investments, retirement planning, because what was happening in the 90s economically? It was boom time, so it was very easy to sit down and talk to people about investments. There was one part of the job I hated. I had to sell insurance. Oh my gosh, insurance. Oh yeah. How many people love to talk about death, disability? It was Stan. We were talking about that. He does end-of-life planning. Well, those are fun conversations to have with families. Okay. And what was worse is when I would talk to my family and friends, they said, "You're selling what?" Huh. And Mark, as a comic, you might be familiar with this phrase. In fact, most of you in this room probably are familiar with this phrase, and you fill it in for me. Hey, when you get done with that, when are you going to get a real job? So I'm putting up with this over the first few years, and as time went on, it got worse. So I got smart. I created euphemisms. Well, I sell insurance. I'm a protection specialist. People would look at me kind of blankly, and eventually I'd come around to saying it's insurance. And then a few years went by, and I thought, well, I'll get real creative. What I am is a certified financial planner. I engage in full comprehensive financial planning, and part of that is creating a solid foundation of protection for you and your family if the unexpected occurs. And they would look at me and they would say, "Is that insurance?"
I was going to say, sounds just like insurance.
And it was just, I did everything I could to hide the fact that I sold insurance. And it stayed that way until 2002. I was sitting in my office one morning with Judy. She's one of my favorite clients. She's vivacious, fun-loving. She walks into a room, it lights up. People love Judy. But she wasn't looking that way on this particular morning. Her hair was matted. Dark circles were under her eyes. She could tell she'd been crying. Her eyes were bloodshot. And she held a freshly brewed cup of coffee in both hands in her lap. She was sitting across the desk from me. And I said, "How you holding up?" "I don't know, Michael. This wasn't supposed to happen. I'm the one who's been sick. We were supposed to grow old together." I know. 52-year-old, healthy 52-year-old men are not supposed to have an aneurysm in the shower. What am I going to do? He left me this business. Those people depend on me now, and I don't know what to do. I mean, I got to make payroll next week. Where's the money going to come from? I wish I could bring Jerry back. And I know the last 2 weeks have just been turned upside down for you. But you know, 5 years ago, we did all that planning. And we did a lot of insurance work then. And I'm sure you've forgotten how much money that we had on Jerry's life. And at that moment, I reached on my desk, and I pulled out a check and handed it to her. It's a life insurance proceeds check for $600,000. She took it. Business going. Those people can keep their jobs. We're going to make payroll. Thank you. In that moment, I was no longer ashamed or embarrassed to say, "I sell life insurance." In that moment, when her world was completely turned upside down, I was the one person who walked in and partially turned it right side up and bought her time until she could get through the most difficult time of her life. And from that day forward, when I met people, there were no more euphemisms. I said, I'm a financial advisor, and part of what I do is make sure that you have enough insurance in case the worst thing happens to you and your family.
You bring any policies tonight?
Pretty good. Got apps right over there. And I don't tell you that story to sell you insurance. I tell you, as speakers and writers and coaches, there are people who are going to say to you, when are you going to get a real job? And when the 15th person has said, no, we don't need your services right now, you're going to say, why did I do this? And what you do may not be as dramatic as handing somebody $600,000, but what you do makes a huge difference in people's lives. I don't care if you're training, you're making people laugh, does not matter. Never forget that what you do is important and people need to hear what you have to say.